The Fall 2020 Hinkle, Pryor, and Fisher Parent Empowerment Conference. Realities for a New Reality. 2 days, 25 workshops, renowned speakers and presenters, by families, for families, nearly 40 hours of unfiltered and straightforward information, made possible by the leaders in disability rights advocacy for over 45 years, Hinkle, Pryor, and Fisher, attorneys at law. So welcome to this session of our ongoing encore presentation series of the Fall 2020 Hinkle, Pryor, and Fisher Parent Empowerment Conference.
All right. Welcome and thank you for attending the Hinkle, Pryor, and Fisher Virtual Parent Empowerment Conference. My name is Christina Tosti, and I'll be your moderator for this workshop entitled Planning for Your Future with Self-Directed Services. Our presenter for this session is Allison Goodrich. Before we begin, we ask all participants to remain muted throughout the session. This workshop will last approximately 90 minutes, and if time allows, the presenter will take questions intermittently throughout the presentation. Please ask your questions through the chat feature and in the control bar, and I will ask as many of them as I can, again, time permitting. It is now my pleasure to welcome our presenter, Allison Goodrich. Allison is the Assistant Executive Director of Support Coordination at Community Access Unlimited and holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Economics and Spanish from Rutgers University. Her career experience at the Rutgers Center for the State of Health Policy has informed her understanding of the Division of Developmental Disabilities and its approach to providing services. Allison has worked in support coordination since 2013, witnessing the division's design evolve through the years into today's system. She and her agency are contributing member of the Support Coordination Alliance through the Alliance for the Betterment of Citizens with Disabilities, an advocacy organization dedicated to improving the lives of those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Fully embracing the life course model, her support coordination department provides individuals with a team of knowledgeable staff who help identify resources in their communities, navigate the intricacies of obtaining division-funded services, and expertly write unique person-centered individualized service plans. Both Allison and Community Access Unlimited are dedicated to maintaining exceptional service quality and furthering the mission to help individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities gain community access through person-centered services that help them lead fulfilling, productive, and happy lives. Now, further ado, take it away, Allison.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we are going to be talking about planning for your future with self-directed services. So it starts with person-centered planning. This is the whole premise of how we're going to be discussing a lot of the services today. And so the person-centered planning process centers around the whole person. You see that we are looking at the values, goals, family, interests, skills, abilities, personal style, all of the things that make you, you, and centering all of what we're going to be doing around that premise. So we're looking at the whole person, not just one aspect of them. Then you add self-direction. So there are many ways forward. The best one is the one that you choose. Self-direction means that you are going to be the decider. You're going to be the one in the driver's seat. And this is going to allow you to plan for your future and find success. Success is defined differently for everyone. So with this approach, we're going to be identifying your goals and how you can achieve them. So this is the Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services definition of person-centered planning. And it is defined as a process by the family or the individual with long-term care needs intended to identify the strengths, capacities, preferences, needs, and desires and outcomes of the individual. The family or individual directs the family or person-centered planning process. So this is all to say, again, that you are in the driver's seat. You're going to be the person that's ultimately deciding how your day is going to look, what services you'll be receiving, what supports you'll be receiving, and how your future is going to pan out. So how does it work? We have what's called a planning team, which is a group of people who come together to find ways to help you succeed. The planning team is made up of anyone that you want in the room. So it can be family members, it can be friends, it can be neighbors, it can be anybody that is going to help you to decide how you're going to move forward, and it is going to be anyone with your best interests at heart. What are your interests, right? So that's actually going to be the thing that drives the planning process. What are your interests and goals? And we'll discuss a little bit of how to tease those things out, because I know sometimes it's difficult to know what exactly you're interested in and what exactly your goals are going to be for your future. So we'll be discussing a little bit about that person-centered planning process and how to identify some of that. And then what you decide to do with your day is customized to those preferences. So each person's day can look different. In the past, the way that DDD, which we'll be discussing, provided services was very kind of one size fits all. You had a few choices to make, and sometimes those choices worked, and sometimes they were trying to put the wrong size shoe on your foot. They were okay, but you would prefer the right size. That's what we're doing now with customizing your day. We're giving you the right size, the right supports, the right services, what's going to work for you. And that means, again, making your day look how you'd like it. So here I have someone who is taking therapeutic horseback riding lessons as an example of something that you can do during your day. You don't have to do this every day. You can do it every day if you'd like, or you can do it once a week, etc. So you decide if your days are going to look the same, if your days are going to look different, and what you're going to be doing each time. Why? Why person-centered planning? So person-centered planning really is something that we do intuitively without even thinking. I think everyone in this room, this virtual room, has made choices about what they like and what they don't and moved forward with that, right? I had the choice to be able to go to college. I had the choice to be able to decide what I wanted to do with my career. And I was the one who drove forward those decisions and followed through. I had the dignity and the respect to be able to do that. So again, we're looking at providing people with the same options. People with different abilities should be able to do the things that they'd like to do as well. So making sure that they are able to make those choices provides them with respect and with some dignity about what it is that they'll be doing. Also making sure they're included in the community and participating. Community inclusion is very important. A lot of times it can be difficult to approach someone in the community or to make friends in the community. I, for one, as an adult, find it hard to make friends in the community sometimes. But going up to people in class or going up to people that are at a church or at another, place that you are comfortable in, and introducing yourself and becoming part of something, a book club, or becoming part of the yoga club, or whatever your interest might be, is helpful and is a way for you to make connections in the community and network. You never know how someone is going to enter your life or how they're going to be able to assist you and how you're going to be able to assist them. So it's about making those meaningful connections and participating. Right? Making sure that people understand that people with disabilities are just that. They're just people. They can do whatever it is that any of us can do, right? They can do anything that they choose. And so making sure that people are part of the community helps to kind of break down those barriers as well and make sure that people understand that fact. So goals and aspirations. As I was saying before, you never know how you're going to be able to be impacted by who you know and what relationships you make in that community. Oftentimes, some of our goals and aspirations can be achieved by the help of others. I don't think there's many people that do everything alone. So getting your goals and aspirations and sharing those with people will also help you to get there. And then employment first, which I'm going to discuss in a few minutes. Employment first is a key factor to all of the person-centered processes because employment first was put into place for the state of New Jersey in April of 2012. Governor Chris Christie made it through legislation, and Employment First is a framework for systems change that is centered on the premise that all citizens, including individuals with significant disabilities, are capable of full participation in integrated employment and community life. So, this means that competitive employment is the first and preferred post-education activity for everyone, including people with different abilities. That means you're looking to earn a competitive wage. You're working as much or as little as you like or you're able. You're finding work that is meaningful to you. You're preparing for your work through skills building. You're connecting to your network and community to find opportunities. You're becoming an entrepreneur and you're thinking outside the box. So, as I was discussing earlier about my career trajectory, I didn't decide to do this when I started school, right? I decided to do this as I was taking courses, going through my high school education, and looking at what I wanted to do in the post-secondary world. Same thing for people with different abilities. If they are looking at something that requires a degree to pursue, that is considered employment first. Going to college so that you can eventually gain the skills you need to get a position that is competitively employed is employment first. And that also means that things similar to that are employment first. Things like going to a trade school or going to day services. If you're being taught skills for future employment, whatever those skills are, that is considered employment first. So I like to just clarify some of those misgivings because sometimes this can be a little scary for people, especially people who have not considered employment before. But skills that are taught for future employment are employment first. So if I need to learn how to better communicate, that's a soft skill. That's a skill that's considered being taught for future employment. It's something that I'll need in the workforce in the future to be able to communicate with my peers, communicate with my customers, and to make sure that I communicate with my boss, right, in an appropriate way. So those are all skills that I can learn for future employment. Any kind of activity that you're learning that's related directly to something you want to do is also future employment. So if you are looking to be a cook and you want to take cooking classes, that would be considered an employment first skill. So thinking about those kinds of skills and not necessarily just immediately going straight to work 40 hours a week. That is not what employment first means. It also means that you are working as much or as little as you're able. So if you're not able to sustain work for extended periods of time, you can work a couple hours a week and that can still be considered employment first. You can work 1 hour a week and that can be considered employment first. If that is what the person is capable of doing and is willing to do, then that is absolutely something that is able to be put into place. And then, thinking outside of the box as well. I'd like to discuss a story about a person that I actually heard at another presentation when I was learning about employment. So There was a young gentleman who was very interested in becoming part of the military. But because of his different ability, he wasn't exactly qualified to be able to join the military. So instead of discouraging this person and saying, don't even try, he and his family decided that they were going to go to the recruitment office and let him talk with the military recruiters. The military recruiters, while they couldn't provide him with an actual enrollment into the military, did have a lot of good positive feedback about him and did have a good impression about what he was capable of doing. So they decided to offer him a position within the recruitment office, which was not necessarily part of the military, but was a job and was something that he was really interested in doing. He wanted to be helpful, right? And he wanted to be part of that culture and part of that experience. And so he was able to achieve that, even though he wasn't quote unquote military. So he was able to achieve his goals, and he loves what he does because he was able to think outside the box and look a little bit past what's typical and what's norm, right? And try anyway to see what will happen. So you never know what will happen. You never know if something will lead you to a path that's unexpected. But trying is really part of what we want everyone to do, to see what happens, because sometimes it does work for the best. So, person-centered planning, core principles and values. These build on the individual's strengths, gifts, skills, and contributions. Supports personal empowerment. Right? Person-centered planning makes you empowered. It makes you the center of what is going on. Provides meaningful service options. So it also, as I said before, is customized to what you need and what you'd like to achieve. It is not a one-size-fits-all. And so it is meaningful to do what it is that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It honors your goals and your aspirations. I like to say that no goal or aspiration is too big. It might seem too big, but dreaming big makes things work, right? Little steps towards big dreams are how they are achieved. So honoring someone's goals and aspirations is a big part of person-centered planning. And you can break down certain things to assist you in learning skills that maybe you wouldn't think of. An example is a member of ours who takes acting classes. Now, he wants to be an actor, and I hope that he makes it. But we all know that it's hard to break out in the acting world, right? Still, he is learning a lot of skills from being an actor and taking acting classes. He's learning how to communicate. He's learning how to react with others. He's learning how to project. He's learning confidence. He's learning stage presence. So he is learning a lot of different skills that are soft skills that are transferable to the rest of his daily life. And we're honoring his goal of trying to become an actor while he's also still learning things that will help him in everyday situations. So looking at things from that perspective, no goal is too big, no dream is too big, and those things will teach you something and will help you as you move forward in life. We respect culture, ethnicity, religion, and gender. So again, making sure that your services are going to be centered around what it is that works for you. If you have a boundary due to cultural or religious preferences on who it is that you work with, when something that might be a little more intimate when it comes to supports is needed, then that's something that we help to take into consideration in the person-centered planning process. And we make sure that that's respected so that you're comfortable and everyone else is comfortable. Promoting dignity, respect, interdependence, competence, and mastery. So again, respecting people's choices and helping them to learn on their own pace to complete mastery of a skill. I don't know about you, but if I don't really like something, I don't really get very good at it. So looking at things that people like and making sure that we're helping them to learn how to get better at those things and encourage them, is something that is promoted through person-centered planning. Not forcing people to do things that they don't necessarily like and probably aren't going to be the best at. Creating community connections. So as I said before, making sure that people are going out into the community and introducing themselves and taking a chance on making new connections, making new friendships, and not having such a tight, small circle of supports, but rather a larger circle of supports. So all of the elements that compose a person's individuality and family's uniqueness are acknowledged and valued in the planning process. Self-directed services. So this is the other key component to this process, and it's really all about choices. Self-direction means you direct or manage something for yourself. So it can be work, it can be study, as we'll say later on in this presentation, it can be employees that you are managing. Anything that you can think of can probably be self-directed. You are in control of where you will go and how you will get there. It's your day, your way. So this is a little bit of history on self-directed services. They began in New Jersey in the early 1990s. They started with the cash and counseling model in Medicaid. We are one of the original 3 states to establish cash and counseling type Medicaid programs, and New Jersey's cash and counseling program began in 1999. Self-directed services allow you to use community services that meet your needs, allow you to use transportation options that work best for you, and allow you to hire self-directed employees at an hourly wage that you set. They must comply with New Jersey minimum state wage, however. And self-directed employees are people you recruit, hire to help you gain skills and complete daily activities. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about self-directed employees. Before I move on, I do want to just check in and see if there are any questions or anything that I can help to answer.
So I don't have any questions at this time. I think you're doing a good job of explaining, which is probably why. But as they pop up, if anybody has any now, please feel free to put them in the chat feature. Otherwise, you can continue.
Thank you. Okay. So I have a feeling you might have some questions about self-direct employees after I have this part of the discussion. But let's hope for the best and see if I can anticipate your questions. So there are 2 different models for self-directed employees. There's the fiscal employer agent model and the agency with choice model. Both of these models are available within DDD programs. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about DDD programs a little later. But the self-directed employee models are not exclusive to DDD. They are available in other departments and divisions. And so these are the 2 platforms or the 2 models that are available in a lot of those different programs. Some of you might be familiar with some of these because you might be using them right now. So the fiscal employer agent model means that the individual or representative is the employer of record and their employee payroll related responsibilities are given to a fiscal or employer agent. Okay, what does that mean exactly? So that means that the person is registered as a business. Just like you or I can go to a Walmart or a Target or any other large corporation, large store, or even the small shop down the street. You know, I have a clothing store that's locally owned. Those are all businesses, and they're all required to do certain tasks to make sure that they have their status remain that way. Part of that is paying employee taxes. So employee payroll taxes are collected, and that is something that the fiscal agent helps to assist. The fiscal intermediary, I should say, helps to assist. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about what a fiscal intermediary is. But keep in mind that means that this registers a person as a business. And there are all the rules and regulations that go along with that applied in the fiscal employer agent model. Now, what is a fiscal intermediary? A fiscal intermediary helps to make sure that all of those business transactions and those paperwork, payroll, all of those other not so pleasant parts of having the business are completed. So the fiscal intermediary helps to manage some of the back-end work of being a business, right? They help to make sure that taxes are filed on time, that paychecks go out on time, and things of that nature, along with your help, okay? They do it with you, not necessarily for you, because if you don't give them a timesheet, for instance, then they can't pay your employees. So that is how a fiscal intermediary helps in the fiscal employer agent model. Then we have agency with choice. Agency with choice is when an individual or representative selects the employee, but the employee is employed by a third party with shared responsibilities. So if we go back to our idea of having a Walmart or Target or ShopRite or any of those businesses working with us, in this type of model, we would tell Target, hi, we want this person to be working with us exclusively, and we would like for you to hire them. So that is the same thing for agency with choice. You're going to use the fiscal intermediary to have the employee hired. The employee will actually be an employee of the fiscal intermediary and not of yours. So you will not be the business employing that person. It will be the fiscal intermediary. The employee will have to comply with any of the trainings, any of the requirements of the position that are imposed upon them by the fiscal intermediary. So the fiscal intermediary does have certain obligations. They do have to provide them with health insurance, for instance, if they are of a certain size. They do need to provide them with paid sick leave if they're of a certain size. So there are certain rules that will be applied that are not necessarily applied when you're using the fiscal employer agent model. The agency with choice, again, does have requirements when it comes to training, background checks, and all those other things. So there is a little bit less of a flexibility with the agency with choice than there is with the fiscal employer agent. That's the main differences. And I just like to discuss that because sometimes it can be difficult for people to decide upon which model they would like. The employer agent model is a little more work, but it does provide you with more flexibility, and it does provide you with more resources. The agency with choice model may not do so because, as I mentioned before about wages, The agency with choice model does have to comply with some different wage requirements than the employer agent model does. So you might be spending a little bit more for the agency with choice model and using your budget a little bit more, but you do get a little more convenience and you do have a little more of a peace of mind, I would say, when it comes to the agency with choice, because you don't necessarily have to worry about everything that is going to be going on in that model. So, self-directed employees, what are they? They help support you. So I like to use this little image here because you see there's a whole team of people that are helping to support this person and helping that person succeed. Self-directed employees are part of that team. They help support you. They are recruited, interviewed, and hired by the individual or the family to provide individualized services. They do require training, background checks, and are dependent on the source of funds. They are supervised by the individual, family, and they meet the needs of the individual. And they are paid by a fiscal intermediary, which manages payroll functions, etc., which we just discussed. So the thing I like to highlight here about self-directed employees is that they're recruited, interviewed, and hired by the family. This means that you are the person looking for your self-directed employee. That's not always so easy. We'll discuss a little bit about how to find a self-directed employee, but it does help when you have someone that you do know who does a great job with assisting the person or assisting you. And a lot of times self-directed employees are utilized to help a niche that is hard to find, right? Maybe a specific language that you need to have a person speak, or specific qualifications that you need that person to know. So that is the beauty of having a self-directed employee. So how do we find one? Well, individuals already providing supports are typically some of the people that we can ask might be interested in self-directed employee. So if someone is finishing up school and has a teacher's aide that they really get along with well and enjoy, you can approach them and ask them if it's possible for them to become a self-directed employee for you. And then, discuss what hours, pay, etc. with them. Those would all be things that you would be discussing with your self-directed employee. You can ask other people who it is that they are using for word of mouth references. You can ask in the community who might be available. And you can look for non-traditional workforce, friends, neighbors, coworkers, family as well. You can go to religious affiliations and institutions and find out if anyone is interested. And you can go onto websites like care.com or rewardingwork.org. And I would say that oftentimes you can find individuals that are very excited and willing to become a self-directed employee if you post or you visit a community college or a graduate program around your area. Oftentimes people who are in a social services field want to get some experience and have their heart really set in working with people. So they look for experiences that are going to be meaningful for them. And this is one of those. And teachers as well are very helpful to discuss this with. They might have a recommendation, or they might know of someone who is looking for such position or be interested themselves. And so all of those are ways that you can find a self-directed employee. Some pros and some cons. There's always pros and cons, right? So pros, independence. Con, paperwork. You'll have a lot of, independence and a lot of flexibility in being able to hire people and, choose who it is that you want, but it does require you to do a little bit of legwork and do some paperwork that you might not otherwise, do some recruiting and some hiring that you might not otherwise. So it can be a little daunting for people who have very limited time on their hands with what they are already doing, right? But there are other services that can help assist you with getting self-directed employees, and we'll discuss those. One of them is supports brokerage, which we'll be talking about. And then we have Pro of Control. You're able to schedule people for when it is that you need them. You're able to discuss hourly wages and make choices about what it is that you'd like someone to know, what their qualifications are, things like that. And the con is that you are in charge of their schedule. You do need to make sure that you're scheduling people regularly so that they can help assist you. And not always is it the best option if you don't have a backup, a backup person who is able to help assist when someone, say for instance, gets sick. Especially in this year, I think it's been really important to remember that you do need to have some kind of backup plan when it comes to things like that. Cost saving, again, talking about hourly wages and not necessarily having to pay a specific amount. Monitoring, you do need to monitor what people are doing, look at their timesheets, make sure that what's in there is accurate. Pro, you do have a lot of rights, but the con is you do have a lot of responsibilities as well. So sometimes this option is good, sometimes it's not, but it is something that's available and it's very helpful. Self-directed employees is just one of the many ways you can self-direct services. So this is all to say that it's compiling the new vision for supports, using a life course model to meet individual needs, promoting full community participation, and being part of the community, not just in the community. Discussing employment first, as we said before, and remembering self-direction fosters choice, and it should be the rule and not the exception. So these are the, elements that make up this new vision for supports in our new world. So who funds all of this? There are a lot of different entities that fund this. State and federal agencies, most which do require Medicaid. And there are various government funding sources. So they're including but not limited to these items or these divisions. Division of Developmental Disabilities, Division of Medical Assistance and Health Services, Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services, and Division of Developmental, I'm sorry, I already said that one. So the Division of Developmental Disabilities offers the Supports Program and Community Care Program. And those are funded through state and federal dollars. So now we'll be talking a little bit about Division of Developmental Disabilities and how to get it, right? So to receive funding through the DDD, an individual must apply and be determined to meet the functional criteria of having a developmental disability, be Medicaid eligible, and maintain Medicaid eligibility, and establish that New Jersey is the applicant's primary residence at the time of application. There's a lot of information on this slide, so I'm going to take some time on this one. Okay, so applying for Medicaid. Medicaid can be applied for in a couple different ways. We're going to also discuss another option on some following slides. Medicaid via supplemental security income is one of the most common ways that people get Medicaid. So supplemental security income is highly recommended for individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities who turn 18 years of age and expect to pursue DDD services. The supplemental security income program pays a monthly benefit to adults with disabilities age 18 and older who have limited income and resources. The Federal Social Security Administration no longer counts parental income and resources when determining SSI eligibility for an individual who is 18 or older. New Jersey residents who receive SSI will automatically receive New Jersey Medicaid. And having SSI protects Medicaid eligibility for the future. So a lot of times parents do not know that when their loved one turns 18, they can apply for SSI and most likely receive SSI for their loved one. Oftentimes people believe that their parental income will knock the person out of the eligibility, and that's not the case. So you can apply at 18, and it's recommended that you do. Because most of the services that are going to be utilized will be predicated on Medicaid. What if I am not eligible for SSI? So there's a couple different ways that you can not be eligible for SSI, but to cut to the chase, I guess, you do have a monthly income or financial resources that are above the SSI limits. You can still apply for Medicaid, and I'm going to discuss that in a minute. You can also visit your County Board of Social Services to apply for Medicaid and review documentation verification checklists. So I've put here the contact for the Medicaid Eligibility Help Desk for DDD. They do handle any requests or comments or questions about Medicaid. So you can contact them at any point to get some assistance should you need help and should you be embarking on this process. But I'm going to give you also some information and some links on this presentation as well that will be helpful. NJ workability. So what is this? This is a way that you might still be able to apply for Medicaid if you are not able to get SSI. So NJ workability offers people with disabilities who are working and whose income would otherwise make them ineligible for Medicaid the opportunity to receive full Medicaid coverage. So a lot of times, people that work are dependent on the services that they get through Medicaid to continue working. So instead of being caught in this catch-22 where if you work, then you don't get your service, but if you don't get your service, then you can't work, this is the answer to that, right? 2020 New Jersey workability guidelines are that you be between 16 and 64, that you work full-time or part-time with proof of employment, that you be determined as disabled by the Social Security Administration or the Disability Review Team at the Division of Medical Assistance and Health Services, and then you have income and asset eligibility. I want to note here that it is between the ages of 16 and 64. At 65, you become eligible for retirement, but you are no longer eligible for the NJ workability program. So some people who decide to continue working past the age of 64 do find themselves knocked off of the program. There are other things you can do to still continue with Medicaid, but we might have to look at some of what is going on with your personal financial situation to get you to a place where Medicaid will still exist for you. So for people that are on the other end of this discussion that we're having, I know a lot of people are new graduates and super young, but for people who are on the other end, that is something that I like to just clarify because it can be a surprise sometimes. So NJ workability. There is eligibility, assets, and income requirements. And this is the total earned income potential requirement, right? So, or eligibility, I should say. So it includes, but is not limited to, wages, self-employment earnings, workers' compensation, paid sick leave, private or state temporary disability plan benefits, or commissions. All of those things take into account when you're looking at earned income potential. If you have no unearned income, then the individual can earn a gross earned income of $64,596 per year, or $5,383 per month. It cannot exceed this. An eligible couple's gross income is a little bit higher, and it cannot exceed $86,988 or $7,249 per month. So this is a pretty healthy and pretty substantial benefit for someone who is looking to get a position or full-time position and still have a really good salary and really good wages and maintain their Medicaid. If you have unearned income, for example, in addition to your wages, you might receive alimony. The maximum earned income threshold will vary. And that will be something that you do discuss on a one-to-one basis with your assigned counselor who's helping with determining the eligibility. But these are the general requirements for total earned income potential. Unearned income thresholds. It's included but not limited to alimony, Social Security survivor's benefits through a parent or spouse's work history, which oftentimes for individuals can be a little bit of a surprise because they don't realize that they're going to be receiving that benefit. Unemployment, interest, investments, or trust payments. Social Security, disability, and railroad retirement system benefits for an individual receives his or own SSA work history are disregarded. So an individual's unearned income may not exceed $1,064 per month, and an eligible couple's unearned income may not exceed $1,437 per month. So this is combined with the other income limitations that we discussed in the previous slide. Assets do not include a primary home, a car used for work or medical transportation, or 401k. Asset threshold is $21,000 for an eligible individual and $30,000 for an eligible couple. So you can literally have $20,000 saved in the bank and still be eligible for NJ workability requirements as long as you meet all the other income requirements. An important note is that portions of both earned and unearned income are not counted when determining eligibility for workability. To apply for a full eligibility determination, you need to go to the NJ Family Care Aged, Blind, Disabled, and Programs application. And I've listed the link here, and later on you'll be receiving the slide so you can click on that link to apply if you would like. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and find out if there's any questions about anything that's been discussed so far, because I know this is probably a lot.
We do have a couple of questions. So I've got, can the self-directed employee be a parent, guardian, or other family member?
So at this point in time, and depending on the program, the answer is yes. So I'll break down a little bit. When I was discussing about fiscal employer agent models, some of you might be using that because you're using the personal preference program. And the personal preference program is through Division of Medical Assistance. So personal preference program does allow parents to be employees. Now, the self-directed employee model under DDD currently at this very moment does also allow for parents, guardians to be an employee. Previously, prior to this public health emergency, that was not something that was allowed. So at this very moment, the answer is yes. I do not know if the Division of Developmental Disabilities will continue with what they are currently allowing or not. They have not given us any indication one way or the other. But at this very moment, the answer is yes. And typically for both programs, a family member is able to assist as well.
Okay, so that leads me into my next question of, are there any changes due to COVID for these programs? So if you can elaborate on any others, that would be great.
Yeah, so at this moment, there's a lot of changes in the division's program services. So DDD, as I mentioned about self-direct employees, has made a change. They've also allowed changes in ability to use virtual or remote services that weren't available before. So I'll be discussing a little bit about day programs and about day services in general, as well as services through the community. And all of those things are available by virtual or remote at this moment. Previously, there were, requirements for in-person.
So the fiscal intermediary would be like a payroll service, is one of the questions.
Yes, so the fiscal intermediary is similar to like a payroll service. Yes, they act as part of the person that checks on trainings and helps to set people up for certain trainings, etc. And they also provide payroll services, tax services, things of that nature. So they do a little bit more than just the payroll. Because they do provide opportunities for people to take training and etc. And they do have to help kind of connect that and set that up.
Okay. I assume this is going to be for the Medicaid workability. How old do you have to be able to apply?
So NJ workability is 16 through 64. So if you are a superstar worker and you started working at 14, I'm so sorry. I know your parents want you to because they have to sign a waiver, but NJ workability is not something that is available at that very moment. But once you turn 16, absolutely.
Okay. And then is there a list of service providers which are approved in New Jersey? And also, is there a list of what services each one provides? How do we find which agencies provide certain programs?
So I'm writing this down so I can add this link into the presentation later today so that when you all receive it, you will have that link in there as well. There is a place for you to be able to look for service providers within Division of Developmental Disabilities. And it does break down services that are offered by provider as well. So you can look for a provider specifically, or you can look for services that you're looking for and get a list of all the providers. It goes
Great, that's a great resource.
Yes, absolutely. I will say that the best thing to do if you are already working with a support coordinator is to discuss what it is you're looking for with your support coordinator. I love that families are partners with us and they want to do the research as well. It's always helpful to have more, minds looking at the same information and interpreting things in different ways. However, there are a lot of different providers, and sometimes your support coordinator is going to be a little bit more familiar with what exactly they do, a little more than what's shown on the provider database, especially during this time. During this time, some of the services have been suspended because of the public health emergency. And so it's helpful to discuss things because we don't want you looking for services on your own only to find out they don't do that right now because of what's going on. So it's helpful to discuss, but absolutely there is a provider database that is available to families as well, so that you can do some research and look for things proactively, which is always great.
Okay, well, that was the last question, so I think you can continue.
Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to be talking about what people were just asking about: supports program and community care program. How do I get services, right? Through the Division of Developmental Disabilities. So DDD functional criteria. Once we've applied for Medicaid, which we already discussed, the next thing that we're looking at is that we have the functional criteria for DDD. DDD is an eligibility-based or determined service. It's not an entitlement. So that means that there is a requirement that you do need to fulfill. And this is one of those things. So DDD functional criteria are needed to be met. To meet the criteria, you need to document that you have had a chronic physical or intellectual disability that manifested in developmental years, so before the age of 22, and is lifelong in nature, and substantially limits the individual in at least 3 areas of life activity. So I have in here the parentheses of what the areas are. We have self-care, learning, mobility, communication, self-direction, economic self-sufficiency, and the ability to live independently. So it needs to substantially limit at least 3 of those. It does not need to do all of those, just 3, okay? And any 3, in combination of 3. So applying for DDD. An individual must be 18 or older to be evaluated by DDD for functional eligibility and developmental disability services. And one older DDD service. More information, and that the last slide of the presentation. So, applying for DDD. To be evaluated for the eligibility, you need to complete the application. This is a clickable link that you can click on later to get the application. Individuals who are 18 or older and were previously determined eligible for services through the NJ Children's System of Care can complete a shorter application for eligibility. So some of the documentation that you've already provided to the Children's System of Care will be shared with less for you. So you can also use that clickable link later, applying for DDD and a Children's System of Care. This will definitely application in person or by mail. You will have it hand delivered or mailed application and copies of all documents to the Community Services Office for your county of residence. For in-person submission during COVID, you need to call the office first to determine if anyone's going to be there and make an appointment. Submitting the application by email is a little bit easier, and you can scan everything, send it in to that email. And you should include in your subject line that it is the intake application, their initials, and their county of residence. I'm sorry, before I forget, also I want to say, when you are sending this, please do make copies for yourself so that should anything be lost or misplaced, you do not have to do this all over again. You can have copies of exactly what you sent in. And email is probably the best thing to do because you will also have a receipt that you mailed it, you emailed it. By mail, if you're so you have completed all of that and you've gotten into DDD, comprehensive assessment tool. That unit.
Hold on, Tricia, I'm gonna stop. Elsa, I'm gonna stop you really quick. You keep freezing, so I don't know if you want to wait just a second for your video to catch up. Hold on. Hold on.
Okay.
You're still frozen here.
Hopefully it is better now.
I can hear you now, but you're still a little bit, and I can see your screen move. There you.
So I'm going to stop my video. Maybe that will help.
Okay, that might be good. All right.
Okay. So if you guys can hear me, yes? Okay, great. So the NGCAT is going to be conducted by a facilitator, typically face-to-face. At this very moment, it is by telephone. The facilitator will access the NGCAT online and as prompted on the screen, will verbally ask each question. So at this point, they're going to ask it over the phone. And when all parties that are participating in this meeting agree to any answer, that will be entered into the system. All questions that are answered will go to Rutgers University of Developmental Disabilities Planning Institute, which is a separate institute, to have scores tabulated and a tier established. So it is not part of DDD that is doing this, although DDD is involved in the process. It is sent to someone outside of DDD for tabulation and tier scoring. When is eligibility application? One makes another discrepancy. For students turning 21 and transitioning out of school, the NGCAT can be completed. Person who knows the student attend the NGCAT.
You're freezing up again. Your voice is freezing up. Hold on.
I don't know why.
All right, try that again. I would go back one slide.
For another assessment. For students that are turning 21,
Yeah, we're having really bad feedback. You keep going in and out, and the last two slides, I think we got maybe 2 words.
Oh no.
Would you be able to come back out and come back in really quick by any chance? Just to reestablish the connection. I don't know. Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, we still can't hear you. Now she's dropped. Hold on. All right, stand by, folks. We're gonna try and get her back in the waiting room here. She's trying to enter back in now. Let's get her back in here. There you are. Again.
Okay.
Okay, much better. We can hear you now.
Okay, good. I'm going to turn my video off just in case we have the same issue. All right, so let me find where I was. And get back to you guys. Oh, I'm not able to share my screen.
Oh, hold on one second. That's, yep. Design. All right, try now.
Thank you, everybody, for bearing with us. I know that this is not the best.
Oh.
Okay. So let's see if I can just make it back to where I was. So tips for taking the NJCAT are going to be really knowing what it is that you need and being honest with what your loved one needs. We do always, have the best in mind for our loved ones, but it is important to be honest with what it is that you need, right? I like to give the example of myself. I'm not very good at waking up in the morning. I have an alarm clock set for, I think it's every 10 minutes, 3 times in a row, right? If I did not have that alarm, then I would not be able to get up on time for work in the morning. So I have a need for that piece of equipment. If I don't remember to say that, I won't get that need registered, right? So when someone's asking a question, think of it in that way. Can I do this on my own? Can you get up in the morning all by yourself? My answer would be no, because I need that alarm clock. So before answering, think of yourself or your loved one in a 1-bedroom apartment without any other people in the room, and ask questions or switch between answers on a screen if you're taking a reassessment to see if anything pops up that applies to you or your loved one. Getting a tier. Why is this so important? So NJCAT determines what is called a tier. A tier is a class you are assigned based on your level and is provided along with 3 scoring areas: level of need, behavioral, and medical. Tiers are associated with a specific budget within community care program or supports program. And if your needs are not accurate, then your tier will not be accurate. You'll need to get the funds you need for those supports by making sure that you have accurate answers to those questions. So you've taken all of those steps, and now you're on the last step with DDD of completing the Support Coordination Agency selection form. The selection form should be submitted to a DDD intake worker 1 to 2 months before turning 21. It will be assigned to a support coordination agency no later than April. And depending on when you turn 21, for new graduates, it could be prior to that. And the SEA is going to help develop individualized service plans so services can start upon graduation. When an individual is reentering into DDD services, an agency selection form will be requested by DDD to assign a support coordination agency to assist with locating services and supports. So that's the next step. What is support coordination? Support coordination is the care management model used by DDD to assist individuals in accessing DDD services. It's the only service that doesn't come out of the DDD assigned budget. It is meant to help you navigate through the process of using DDD funded services, and it's based on practices of person-centered planning and self-direction, which we've already discussed. It's essential to accessing DDD services. Why is it so important? Because without it, you don't get access to supports and services. Support coordinators create documentation that requires authorization, and that is how services are unlocked. And it's a helpful component of DDD because it's meant to assist you so that you don't have to know all the rules and regulations of the program. So who is a support coordinator? A professional that helps identify supports, plan for life with the person wants, and connect the person to services to help them achieve a quality life. The person is responsible for developing the individualized service plan, which we'll discuss. It's employed by a DDD-approved support coordinating agency, so not directly DDD, but a DDD-approved agency. They hold a minimum of bachelor's degree, 1 year experience in case management, full background check, and all the completed and required DDD trainings. What do they do? A lot. They coordinate and guide the planning process. They help identify some plan team members, actively participate in meetings, coordinate the PCPT, which we'll discuss, write the ISP, which we'll discuss, monitor the budget, provide assistance securing housing and housing funds, connect individuals to DDD-approved providers, and assist in locating paid and free resources in the general community. So it's a good amount of things that a coordinator will help with. A good support coordinator is going to act as your sole point of contact to DDD. Sometimes they will ask for your partnership in having an outreach to DDD because, to be honest, your voice is so powerful that when you help us ask for something, it's much better than if we are just saying that you need it with our voice alone. Okay, so sometimes they will ask for some help, but for the most part, they're going to be your sole point of contact. They're going to encourage exploring different sources for assistance so that you can stretch your DDD dollars, present you with some research about providers, discuss employment options and work incentives programs like NJ Workability, and provide you resources to gain entitlements that might help you, like having housing vouchers or having any other SSI or food stamps or other benefits that can assist. They help promote independence and community inclusion. They can help act as a mediator as needed between you and a provider when things are a little sticky. They grant authorizations to providers for services, assist in connecting for housing, provide you with advocacy opportunities so that you understand how to self-advocate for things that you want and respond when you are in a crisis and need help. Here at Community Access Unlimited, we have a 24/7 hotline that we use for our crisis response. So every support coordination agency is different when it comes to how they respond, but it's important that they do. So what you should expect is help and guidance, listening to your needs, protecting your sensitive and confidential information. That's very important because we want to make sure that everyone's information is, secure. Regular contact through phone calls and in-person visits. At this very moment, in-person visits are paused during the public health emergency. At least one visit per year to your home, which again is paused at this point in time. And kindness and understanding, because there's going to be bumps in the road and we need to be partners together to get through them. What's your role as a planning team member? We expect that you make choices on what supports you need. We won't ever make a choice for you. We'll give you a lot of choices and we'll give you a lot of research, but we cannot choose for you. We'll work as a partner in communicating with team members. You will be expected to participate in at least one check-in call per month to see how things are going. Again, visit with your support coordinator once per year in your home. At this moment, that's paused. Read and review documents and sign off documents to make sure that authorizations are provided. So how do you choose the right agency? Ask questions. Ask about how long the agency has worked in self-direction. Are they self-approving, which means that they kind of get to skip this DDD layer of getting a plan in place. what training is provided, how they match you to a coordinator, the experience they might have with a particular interest of yours. Those are all good ways to pick a support coordination agency. And for community access, we are a self-approving agency, and we have been doing self-direction for quite a long time. So we do have a lot of availability to be able to assist. And I just want to let everybody know, if anyone has questions, I do have my contact information at the end here. I'm happy to help with any questions. So you've chosen a support coordination agency. Now what? We build your plan. So plan documentation is cut up into two parts: the person-centered planning tool and the individualized service plan. PCPTs and ISPs, right? These are processes used to foster community inclusion for persons with developmental disabilities. The person-centered planning tool gathers information and gets to know the individual. And the individualized service plan is kind of the blueprint for supported living. So the PCPT acts as a discovery tool, helps identify some strengths, cultural customs, gets to know you, explores employment possibilities, and explores resources and discusses voting. It helps emphasize what it is that you are looking to do, right? It promotes choice and participation in the community and increases the number of valued ways people can contribute. This is a PCPT template. This is what is available on the DDD website right now, so should you want to start looking at how to fill out a PCPT. So things like this: what do you admire about yourself? Who is your support network? What is important to you? What are your long-term hopes and dreams? Who is good at supporting you, which is kind of a hard one sometimes to think about. What are your community experiences? Characteristics of people who support you best. How do you communicate? So this is an example of a PCPT. I've blocked out the person's name, but I wanted to give you an example of kind of what it looks like when things are filled out. This is entered into a system and generated out this way. So it's not going to look exactly like what I just showed you. It's going to look a little different, but all the information is the same. And thinking about your employment as well. What it is you want to do and who it is you're going to be working with. What other services are available for employment. And then the ISP, which organizes baseline information, identifies outcomes and goals, contains health and safety info, backup plans, and authorizes services and supports. Very important. So this is an example of an ISP when it comes to an outcome or a goal. This person will learn the skills needed to become a daycare center teacher's aide. And this is what they're going to be doing to learn that skill. So you'll see here, these are what the services are that are authorized. Here's another example of a an ISP and some of the support settings that are needed. So this is focused more on what the person needs to be able to go out into the community and be successful in those environments. Examples of what might be a trigger for people: lights, sounds, etc. And communication. Notice that we're providing details about how the person is communicating through body language, nodding their head yes, rolling their head and their eyes up to the right to indicate no, things like that. So, supports, program, and services. You finally finished all of that information of the PCPT and the ISP, and now you're looking at supports, program, services, and community care program services. These are all the services that are available. I know that there are a lot of them, and it can be overwhelming to know which services are going to be best for you. So it's really dependent upon what it is you're looking for. But I'll just give you some examples of some of the things. Assistive technology could be a communication device. If you have a communication device now in high school and you need to have that replaced, so to speak, because your high school will be taking that communication device back, you can look into getting one for yourself for your home so that you continue using the same software, the same device, etc., that you were previously using. Behavioral supports, something that is often thought of as being reactive, can actually be proactive too. Behavioral supports can help you to learn new skills that might not have been so easy in the past. So an example might be toothbrushing. If we've tried every single way to learn how to brush our teeth, behavioral supports might actually provide you with a different way of learning how to make that skill something that you conquer. And so behavioral supports can be used in a variety of different ways. Something that's used often is community-based supports, which is when an individual comes out to assist you out in the community. And goods and services is another one, which is when community supports are available to you. If you want to go to the local karate dojo, the local yoga studio, the local tutoring center, any of those places, goods and services makes that possible. This does require a little extra layer of DDD review just to make sure that the prices that are provided to an individual are fair and equitable, given that the person has a disability. They don't want anyone to take advantage, right? So they have a little bit of an extra review just for those goods and services. PT, OT, speech, all of those things can continue to be utilized after high school and throughout the rest of adulthood. And supports brokerage, which helps with self-directed employees. It helps to kind of manage them. You can hire a support broker to recruit for you and kind of act just like a manager of your self-directed services. And then the community care program, which has many of the same services. So I'm actually going to go to the next slide because it shows you what's the difference. The supports program does have cognitive rehab and community-based supports, and the community care program because community transition services and individual supports at daily rates. Individual supports at daily rates are a little different than community supports, which are only available hourly. And community resources. So remember always to use community resources. They're a way to increase your DD dollars and to make connections that might not otherwise be there. And then finding a provider agency. Individuals can use word of mouth, recommendations, attend provider fairs, contact your United Way, look at the DDD qualified provider list, which I will make sure is in this next couple slides, ask your child study team, and look on websites. So these are some of the just program highlights overall. The supports program and the community care program really are intended to allow people to live in their own homes or live with their families and use individualized budgets for each program based on their assessed level of need. They help provide the family and the person with supports, employment, and day options. And they are all predicated on having a support coordinator complete those 2 documents and have those documents authorized. So this is a page with all the resources and links. Again, I will make sure this gets out to you guys so you will have all this information. I tried putting all of the links that were available throughout the slide onto one page so you don't have to keep flipping through, but obviously you can click whenever and wherever you see it. And congratulations, because this is a lot of information. So you've completed this webinar. I'm so proud of you guys. And I know that there's a lot about the transitional process. If you do have questions, you can contact me. This is my information. And if anybody has a Spanish-speaking individual in their life who needs some of this information, I do also speak Spanish and can assist them. And I don't know if we have time for questions. I can make myself available for some extra time. if anybody, has questions.
So I don't see any other questions in the chat feature. I'll give a minute just in case, anybody has any other questions they would like to ask. We'll do that. Allison, if you want to put your screen back on so we can see you for, closing goodbyes, that would be great.
Absolutely.
All right, everyone. Well, Allison, thank you so much. There was a ton of information, and it's all really helpful and a really great resource for the parents that joined us. So thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate it. Everybody enjoy their weekend. Again, Allison, thank you, and we will see you guys soon.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you joining today on a lovely Saturday.
Yes, absolutely. Now enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes.
Thank you for watching this encore presentation from the Fall 2020 Hinkle, Pryor & Fisher Parent Empowerment Conference. With 24 other presentations to view, there is plenty of additional information to help you become empowered. As a reminder, the information contained in this video is not a substitute for individual legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. Copyright 2020 Hinkle, Pryor & Fisher, PC, Attorneys at Law. All rights reserved.